Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with
Patrick Geoffrion-Amorim.
With a French accent?
Patrick Geoffrion-Amorim.
Heard Andy Roddick once say if you have three names, that means you're a great clay courter. Is that true?
That was my best surface, I would say, when I was younger.
All right. So Patrick's been here for a couple weeks, and we're going to talk about this, that, and the other thing. Patrick takes great notes. Dedicated, passionate. First of all, Patrick's up in, he's from Montreal, but he's in Toronto at the Richmond Hill Country Club with a number of coaches we've worked with for a long time. We say a few things about the shout out to Richmond Hill. What do you have to say? Commercial for them.
For me, it's the best career decision I could have ever made. Making the move to Richmond Hill. And leaving Montreal, leaving Club CDL, which was my second home for many years. But ever since I've made the change to Richmond Hill, just being in an environment where all coaches are on the same page, working alongside great coaches like Miran Man, Gino Octa, and all the other coaches. Every day you learn. When you're at work, every day you learn. There's no toxicity. The players understand your language. That you like. Our coaching language is called the GreatBase. So the players understand the coaching language. It's easy to formulate lesson plans. I've also had the opportunity to learn from Richard Hernandez, the old tennis director of the club. Who still has a great relationship with Miran. So yeah, it's been just an amazing experience since making the move. Miran's an amazing boss. Very, very open-minded. Always making sure all the employees are growing, getting better, improving. Yeah, I only have positive things to say about the club. Well, I spoke more about the program. The club itself is beautiful. It's a country club with an outdoor pool, an indoor pool. It's going to be down. Well, we have 9 indoor courts, but we're going through a bit of a construction phase right now. A beautiful gym, indoors, squash courts, a golf simulator, good food, a good restaurant, a terrace. Yeah, it's a beautiful club. So it's been one of the best moves of my career.
And young career. You're 35?
I'm going to be 35, April 5th.
35, junior vet.
Yeah.
And on the dark side, to go back to Montreal after you went through our training.
Oh, okay. You want to speak on that? So
just touch base. I know not mentioning the trainer's name, but one of our associates was recently at an educational workshop, and he's from your former club. And I asked you, and you said yes, he hates GreatBase.
Yeah,
but he's not the only one. You were, it was an uphill battle. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it's common in our world. Coaches, parents, players are quick to judge a book by its cover. GreatBase, when you don't really understand it, looks a little mechanical, a little rigid when you watch players hit, but there's a whole world to it, right? So I think people just need to take a minute, sit down with you, ask you some questions, get to understand a little bit better. And to be honest, that's what the old head coach of CDL actually did that. He didn't quite agree with certain things, but he sat down with me, asked me a few questions, and he was understanding, open-minded. And at the end of it, he didn't necessarily agree with everything, but it was a very respectful conversation. So I respected him for that. But in general, what happened to me when I, after spending a couple of weeks with you here and continuing to develop the players in Montreal, it was just a lot of like bad mouthing. Coaches would tell the players I'm working with everything they're learning is wrong. Uh, Obviously, like the players had a good relationship with me, so it kind of went in one ear, out the other ear. But it's still not fun to deal with that on a daily basis. Um, it's just an unnecessary stress. You're not free to just work the way you want to work. I'll give a simple example. If I'm teaching the backhand volley and I'm teaching, to change the grip to the right side of one, and then on the corner of my eye, I could have a guy just judging me. Not that it matters, but like everyone's looking at me like, what is this guy doing? Like I'm an astronaut. Like,
Well, also too, there's people like Frank Hornig, before him, Danny Cooper. Obviously, Frank is German, but he's been a resident of Montreal for a long, long time. Danny's a native of Montreal.
yeah,
So you have a connection. So it's not like something that you just studied for 2 weeks. I mean, you had have a history with it. Language, if people haven't taken a deep dive, use my name in third person, Steve Smith stuff, but it really is the language of all these different tennis teachers from the past. And there's a lot of fact-based, detailed information. And also to the GreatBase, so many people are just so hung up on how the pros play and are not really part of how to develop a beginner to an advanced beginner to an intermediate. Get just stuck on the high performance cycle. Also, too, I think when you put players through an assessment, and so, for example, you have video skill assessment, they can't hit targets. Then you have match play, and you have the stats, statistical analysis to go with the match, and then just filming basic strokes and doing narrated slow motion analysis, showing pre-post videos, and then having a track record of people that, okay, fair enough, not everybody ends up being a marquee player where they're playing the majors, but the improvement's there. What their rankings were, was it a lateral downward movement, laterals, or was it vertical movement with, but yeah, so I've taught so many tennis teachers, if they go someplace and they're not in charge, good luck. For a curriculum to work, a developmental pathway, the owner, the general manager, the tennis director. If the person at the top of the decision-making list is not in, you're going to struggle. In truth, it comes in 3 phases. First, how's it go? It's ridiculed, it's rebelled, and then finally, they laugh at it at first, they fight it, and then it's self-evident. The proof's in the pudding. People do get stuck on an 8-year-old, going through robotic, mechanical, stiff training. Someone says, well, they don't look like a pro. Well, no 8-year-old is going to look like a pro. Although, and we have 8-year-olds that have done some reps. Like today on Facebook, we put up all sorts of content. It's slow motion of Agassi's backhand. That's one thing. If you study the pros in high-speed film, they don't violate physical laws, and it's all there. It's just amazing. People just go in with the naked eye. And on these podcasts we've talked about so many times is people mistake the recovery as the follow-through. And the recovery is very athletic and very individualized, and it becomes a stylistic question. But where's the racket face at the hit? How long is the hitting zone? Yeah, so we're at Wintergreen. It's been great. Not only were you here with helping your players, we had many other players, and we went on 2 outings to the University of Virginia. I know you have some notes. We had Virginia men and women playing in California, Virginia men and women playing Stanford. Wow. We go through that. But you're a great note taker. Let's start with some notes you read off. many times what I'll do is we give the kids breaks. We have immersion days. So we come in the classroom and I'll say, okay, name 3 pros, name 3 universities. Because, college tennis is a goal, pro tennis is the dream. And the kids are switched on for that. So, downstairs there's pickleball rackets for sale, and Jack Sock's name's on the pickleball rackets, his poster. And one of the young players mentioned Jack Sock. And I said, well, I was just at my son Connor's wedding. One of his longtime friends, Gonzalez Austin, he beat Jack Sock to win the national 16s. I didn't say one word, Gonzalez Austin, but Connor was injured. And I said, hey, we'll just stay to the end of the tournament. And he was warming Gonzalez up and coaching him. So round by round, I would say a few things. And again, Connor was the one delivering the message. So Jack Sock, what a big serve. But back in the 16s, he tossed the ball way over his head. So everything was a kick serve. So the ball is going to bounce really high. So you got to take it early. And also Jack, a right-hander, he wanted to move left, and hit forehands. And he wasn't really looking to take a ball out of the air. So I said, take the return early, just get the return in the middle, neutralize the point, go high and heavy to his forehand, go cross court, go to his forehand. And then when you get it out of his strike zone. Also, the best way when you're serving, Gonzalez, obviously a good tennis player, he wins Kalamazoo. The best thing to do against someone with a Western grip, people always say slice, keep the ball low. Yes, but not floating a ball from the baseline. You want to come into the net and be driving volleys. A volley's going to have a low trajectory. Like Pistol Pete Sampras. He would have matched up really well. That type of game that's gone away. So anyway, you said, I've got some notes. One of your players that I know quite well. Why don't you just do the same thing you did in our classroom, just do the rapid fire on the Gonzalez Austin, Eric Krive notes.
Yeah.
It was a Battle of Boca.
Yeah, so this was in December 2023. So one of our best players from Richmond Hill Country Club, a great competitor who's playing at University of Kentucky right now. He had the opportunity to play against Gonzalez Austin. Actually, on that trip, before I read the rest of my notes, Eric got the opportunity to play Stefan Kozlov in a Case Lee. Then he got the opportunity to play Gonzalez Austin in a Case Lee. Then he got the opportunity to play a returning Martin Klizan at the Battle of Boca.
Caselli, you mean Caselli?
No, the third one was Battle of Boca.
Okay, just the pronunciation, right?
Caselli? Yeah, Caselli, yeah.
That's how they say it. They were probably wrong, but that's we Americans say it in Miami.
Yeah, so pretty powerful for Eric to have the opportunity to play these three guys in a 1 month trip. And
also too, he's playing at the University of Kentucky. I've been a number of very good Canadians that have played there.
Yeah,
Peter Cobelt, who was recently on the podcast, coached there. I think we should get Liam Draxel, his father, on the podcast. That'd be a great episode.
For sure.
Liam played at Kentucky. Great competitor. So is his dad. But go ahead. Let's rattle these off.
Okay. So just to give one more little context, Eric had just come off a 2-month injury. And he was this was his first tournaments back. So these were my notes. So, can't run, can't get to the ball, pressure his strokes, don't pressure his legs. Eric's injury was important for his future, but he's playing scared since the injury. Be a beast, go for your shots, let loose, crack serves, hit your first serve, weakest. Body language, don't feel sorry for yourself. Be glad you're playing a 13 UTR monster. He needs to come to the net, but he's scared. Play like you're winning. He's a guy who likes the support. He just doesn't get it. Krive needs to become a physical specimen. He's destroying you. He's drinking water. You're not drinking water. That's just stupid. Who needs to be fighting, him or you? Give yourself the best chance to fight. look like a winner, body language, calm down, showing him weakness, showing him you're not ready to fight, waving your arms up, I quit, I quit. Be consistent, be stable, be consistent mentally, physically, don't quit. You are making improvements for set. People don't realize it, but what Eric is doing right now is part of a tank, not playing to win. He was challenged, then he started to choke, then he got angry, now just tanking, doesn't compete anymore. Winning and losing are feelings. Loses the point, sad. If you win the point, you fist pump at us. You are the one winning in this match. You have an opportunity. You're challenged. This guy didn't win anything from this match, just hit balls. You play a perfect point, lose it from the other guy hitting a good shot, and you whine. You have the opportunity. You have thrown the opportunity away. Eric's emotions are controlled by winning or losing. He's not your friend. Why are you talking to him? Talk to him after the match. You just got to do more fitness. You got to get faster. It's an emergency, a necessity. Being better physically is a mentality. Run, 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 run. Got to get faster. 3, 4, 30, 30 all in the second set. Need to make balls. Guy is getting tired. Guy is gassed. Play to develop, not to win. Your feelings get you in trouble. Live your life to win. Make sure the highs aren't too high. At 2-2, breathe and play efficiently. Don't get too excited. Those are my notes. And just so everyone has the context, Eric lost 6-2, 6-4.
One thing with that, for the listeners, keep in mind that Patrick's here with a lot of players that are very young as 8, 8 to 15. Parents came as well, and perhaps not the 8-year-old, but almost all of them know Eric. And just a year ago, so he's a senior going off. And I've known Eric for many years now. He is a great competitor, but at the same time, if you could turn the clock back, you can't. And he has, played some matches this year as a freshman. He's played a few, right?
I think he does well when he plays.
He's a great competitor.
Yeah.
Great competitor. But so the younger kids, to hear the story of the older kid, and not at anyone's expense. I mean, there's nowhere to hide. 7,200 square feet. There's no secrets in tennis, but they'll all look up to Eric. And, Eric, when he was young, like so many of the kids who are here this week, not liking technique, not liking fitness. That's just the norm. Boris Becker. If you want abnormal results, you can't do what's normal. I think with that, you have to love technique and love fitness.
Well, he did something really good his last week before leaving for Kentucky. So it was our last week of summer camp. And at one point he spoke to all the younger kids, and he said his biggest regret was not respecting the information. Not a question, not respecting the information, just not being as engaged when it comes to the technical work. And he actually mentioned that if he could turn back the clock and just be a little bit more engaged when it came to slow work, when it came to technical work, he would definitely do it. So he encouraged all the younger guys, all the Dannys, all the Jadens.
No, he's got personality too. He's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
With my connection to Richmond Hill, Taylor Fritz's uncle, Harry Fritz, was a tennis director. And all these years later, they certainly have mutual respect. But Richard Hernandez, after he came out of our program, he was working, and Harry didn't like the way he was teaching. So Harry dismissed him. And the members had him reinstated. So Dave Anderson, who helps us with these podcasts all the time, Dave Anderson and I went to Toronto. If we made one, we made 100 videos for juniors, adults. And, Richard's career began. In fact, it wasn't too long ago that Richard was with Harry and Guy Fritz, father of Taylor. and he's a great player. He's been ranked 4 in the world. It's not for juniors to say, well, no, he's not very good. He's just awesome. He's 4 in the world, or has been as high as at 4 in the world. But, his ability to volley better, and, and just the volley itself is not like, well, it's not like we're sitting here saying, okay, we want to change Taylor Fritz's volleys. But, so yeah, the kids, at Richmond Hill. So when I tell them, okay, when you leave court 19 and 20, you can take a left and go charge a nice hot muffin to your parents' account, or you can go to the right and there's those 4, I think it's 4, right? Squash courts, and they're usually empty. And there's a track, and there's just so many things you can do. The Richmond Hill kids come here. I know we've put up a few videos. Like say, here's an 8-year-old Jaden, and he's supposed so well. And I've never met him before. Comes in, I'm just tossing balls, and the kid is doing a lot of things so well. So that's a commercial for the curriculum that we have. But the kids at Richmond Hill, they were in one of your training sessions. So I say it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. And because of your winners, the coaches are running one class after another. So when the kids leave the court, it's not like here where we're with them all day. They're not leaving our site. We have a small group. It's immersion camp, and okay, we are with you for 8 hours. But the kids, for the most part, they don't study content, and they don't do at-home routines. They don't do Program Plus. So that's where it's great to have their parents visit. I was just telling you, for a mom of Jaden and his older brother Howie is, you have to have them. They need to do routines before they go to school and before they go to bed. They have to do things to become better athletes. And it's not just shadow swinging in front of a mirror. There's just so many things you can do with a skip rope and a ladder, and a couple of plyometric boxes. And also a kid looking at an iPad. There was a 8-year-old girl here, a 9-year-old girl from Connecticut, and they had the Canadian group. She's here with a sprained ankle, got a brace on her ankle, but she's here anyway. And, she's watching a 9-minute, yoga program or a 29-minute exercise program. Very extroverted kid. But, do you get it? Do you get it? So, no, with Eric, hopefully his best tennis is ahead of him. Hopefully now he's realizing the importance of having an edge technically and having an edge physically.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's just call it the number. We could have gone with 20 or 20 plus, but we just have a dozen. And you call it the number, and I'll tell you what, I'll call it the number, and you start.
Okay, that sounds good.
We won't use the names, but if the juniors were to listen to this podcast, I tell juniors all the time that the way coaches talk to each other, Matt Clore has been on this podcast many, many times, a very humble, easygoing guy, and he just smiles. We've done a lot of things together. He just smiles when I do it. So he'll say something to me. I'll blow my whistle and say, everybody in here. This is what Matt just told me. He just smiles. And, better for people to hear it. Better for people to hear it. I do flip that at times, most often. How's it go? You're supposed to criticize in private and praise in public. It's more effective if you do it the other way around. So I will walk around and tell people with a private voice, you could be, should be, would be. You could be a great tennis player. But openly, it's like, no. And I think that's the theory of the big family. Kids from a big family learn a lot. And there's no secrets, One brother messes up, the other brothers know it. So lessons are learned. But go ahead. Number one. You say a few things, and I'll maybe add something.
For me, number one needs to become a one. So we always say there's ones and twos. A one is all in, The 2 is everybody else. And being all in is everything, not just on court. It's everything off court as well. So it's doing all the little extras, waking up in the morning, waking up early, going for a run, uh, doing your extra practice, uh, at night, doing your extra fitness, working on your speed, working on your explosivity, helping out around the house. So helping out mom with dishes, without having to ask, just go and do it. Don't wait for someone to tell you to do something. Just go and do it. Like, this number one, if he's listening, he'll know. But,
we didn't put them in any order, but it wasn't like he was, okay, we got to pick on him first. But go ahead.
We just want to make sure they're listening. It would be good for them if they listen. But this number one, you know, I had to put the idea in his head that it'd be a good idea to run from where we're staying to the tennis courts here in Virginia. And it might be a 5-minute run, not even, maybe less. And the first time I told him he should run. Really? Why? Why do I need to run? Do you want me to? Do I have to? Those were his first couple of responses. But eventually after that, he started just running. But again, I put the idea in his head. This morning, there was a little bit of rain. Not much, a little drizzle. And some of the kids ran, some of the kids didn't run. And he walked right to the car. When I asked him, don't you think it'd be a good idea if you went for a run? It's 2-3 minutes away. I don't want to get wet.
Half a mile.
Yeah, exactly. Half a mile. So I don't want to get wet. All right, fine. So just get in the car. No, I'll run. No, it defeats the purpose. Like, now you're running because I told you to run. It needs to come from you. It needs to come from within. And there was another night, he wasn't feeling well. And I'm talking a lot of stuff off court, but how you live your life off court is how you're going to live your life on court. If your life and organization is a mess off court, your tennis game is going to be a mess on court. So there was another incident one night where he wasn't feeling well. So I'm cooking dinner, and 2 of the other boys that are staying with me are helping me out with dinner, and he's just sleeping. That's fine. Then we have dinner and everything, and I tell him and another boy who didn't do as much that they're going to be in charge of the dishes. So I head to my room and I'm listening, and all of a sudden I hear him yelling at the 2 other boys. So that's a red flag in my head. That's not right, because one of those 2 boys was helping out a lot, and he's been helping out a lot all week. But I let it slide a little bit. I give them another 10 minutes and I come and I see this boy, number 1, lying down on the couch on his phone. And I see the other one cleaning the kitchen, and the kitchen is a mess. So I call him over. What's going on? I asked you to clean the kitchen. And he only cleaned, 2-3 plates. But basically, I mean, that just comes down to, like, he's the oldest one in the house. Like, he should be the leader. He should be like, I'm going to do this. And even if it's new to him, I'm going to do this. It's common sense. Dishes go in the dishwasher. I make sure the sink is clean. I make sure the kitchen is in a condition where I would eat off the floor. It should be in a nice condition. There's 4 people living there. And I think that just comes down to his tennis game as well. And this morning I gave him a bit of a hard time because, and he could be tired, but a lot of poor reps. He's on the backboards and he's not moving his feet and taking poor swings and not fully engaged. So I was giving him a little bit of a hard time. And then he kind of gets better again. That's similar to what I do it when I suggest to him to run. So now I suggest him to have more intensity, and he has more intensity. But again, it has to come from within, and that's where this guy needs to learn to be a 1 in life and in tennis. Once he learns to be a 1 in life and tennis, the tennis will get better and better and better. He has good tools. He has a good game, good base.
No, I can say so many things. One comment just leads to another comment. But with Dennis Vandermeer, the late Dennis Vandermeer. If you were going to be promoted within, Dennis was a very good businessman, so he owned a lot of property. So players would, I should say, players, but coaches as well, young coaches would stay on his properties. And, periodically he would do a random check. And Dennis, he was clever. I mean, he's well connected. He didn't fire young coaches, but he found them new jobs. If you were an A, there's a chance for you to stay and work for Dennis longer. Tight as a drum, outcome oriented, all about the score, not in the moment. And that just puts him. And this was applied to all 12. We won't go through all 12. We'll do this randomly, but with that makes it. That puts him in the 98 percentile, 97%. It's not like he's doing anything wrong. Very polite, well-spoken, asks lots of questions. And compared to the norm, and these kids are rock stars. But they're the ones that have told us they want to be successful tennis players. Their goal is to play in college, to play college tennis or beyond. So that gives us the license to push their buttons. And I would say that he doesn't like to have his buttons pushed. A lot of times kids are like, just leave me alone. And that's just not the way it works. And we say it all the time in this podcast, is that connection between the bench and the brain. That, kids play tournaments and they do what they want when they want. And I don't really think that most junior tennis players during practice feel the pressure to make the lineup, to make the team, to be traveling. It's just that mom and dad, they're going to write a check and they'll find a tournament for my level. Attending the tournament or attending the college matches. This one boy, plus with others, they said, guys, it's not a fantasy. I said, I don't want to talk. He said, it was great. You had a chance to watch the number one players. These guys were all great. They've been achievers for a long time to be representing these universities, Virginia, Stanford, California. But these teenage boys, they said, how do you think U2 gets gals on the team? And, just put things in perspective. Let's go with number 8.
Number 8 needs to bring, well, we have the names, right? But to me, number 8 needs to bring number 7 up. He often gets dragged down by number 7. And if they listen to this podcast, they'll know who I'm talking about. But number 8 needs to, put aside the computer, put aside the video games, and just get to work. He needs to work on becoming a better athlete. He needs to have more reps. And he's got a younger brother who is number 9 on our list, but he's got a younger brother who's on the up and up. And I think the age difference might be 3 years. 3 years is not a lot of time. So he just needs to, put his foot on the gas and get to work. And he's going to have to put in more work than other guys his age, because he's behind. Like a lot of these guys on the list, to be honest, they're behind. So they're behind. They don't have time to waste. They got to be, I mentioned that the number 1 has to be all in. They all need to be all in. But there's nothing stopping number 8 from achieving college scholarship. He just has to get to work. And he can't allow, friends, competition to drag him down. He's got to be the leader. He's got to be the leader. He has to believe in himself. He has to work on being a better athlete, better tennis player.
Yeah, let me just say a few things. When you hear something and you like it, make it a story, repeat it over and over again. Coach Garrett Doran, Spent a little time with his older brother, John Doran. Both from Ireland, both played at Harvard. And Gareth Doran told one of my sons, because he observed the behavior of his high school teammates. My father would say, be friendly, but don't be their friends. And so I think that's how number 8 and number 7 are. Buddies, I exchanged one text message and had one phone call to 2 guys that I've known since I was 9 years old today, Mark and Mark. And with that, it's great to have buddies, but generally a buddy is a thief of your time. I tell young junior tennis players, yeah, it's great to have buddies. You got to have some fun. All work and no play made Jack a dull boy. But your real friends are who you turn to in a crisis. So your real friends, you're fortunate, are your parents. They're there for you. This is another blast from the past. Nathan Zeter, who maybe for the length of an elevator ride I coached, because I remember he was in Tampa for a pro tournament and I was helping out these Illinois guys. But I definitely helped his younger brother rebuild his game. I was listening to a podcast with Evan Zeter. He's high up with New Balance. But the older brother said the younger brother told the younger brother, you need to find new friends. And this goes back to me. So, I'm sure that 20 years, give or take. So I'm with Evan Zeter and his friends at the Orange Bowl, and the 3 of them lost in qualies. So I'm the nice guy. I buy him an ice cream, and we're up in the stands, and they're criticizing the guys that play, the guys that are playing. And that's just what I do. Guys, you need to shut up. These guys are in the main draw. You guys didn't get through the qualies. Just eat your ice cream and shut up. And that's what happens, I think, with tennis in Europe. As you travel, you spend a lot more time when you're younger with coaches because you play for a club. And, a lot of times kids, they don't listen enough to mom and dad. And, and perhaps maybe mom and dad didn't play tennis. And that's not fair either. I remember telling one of my sons, his mom told him to tie his shoe, and he looked at it and said, what do you know? You didn't play tennis. It's like, shut up. I think we were all in that position. Let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And with your middle name being Geoffrion, that number is retired for the Montreal Canadiens. Boom, boom, Geoffrion. And he was known for the slap shot. And once he started the big booming shot from the blue line, and true story is that developmental hockey, at one point, it was against the rules to take slap shots because little kids were just taking slap shots from everywhere. It's kind of like today with tennis, is these rackets and strings. People are just trying to rip forehands with an Hawaiian grip from anywhere in the court. But number 5.
Number 5 for me is focus. Just focus. Eyes are always wandering. Capital E. When I say capital E, I mean extrovert. A capital extrovert. Social butterfly. Just needs to shut up. Just needs to focus. Just needs to keep her eyes on her court, on her task. Needs to take good reps over and over again. She's come a long way. Long way. She's done a full rebuild of her game. She's been at it maybe 6 months, not even 6 months. To me, she's hitting the ball well. She's on the right track. She has to stay the course. She has to keep on keeping on. But she just has to shut up, put her head down, and go to work.
Number 5, she has a very good handle on the information. The pre-post video work we have, we need to do a little filming tomorrow before you fly out. Yvonne's here doing some things in the background. Just on her serve alone, do a pre-post. A phenomenal change. But 6 months doesn't mean you own it. And one of the gals who plays for the University of Virginia, she's from Italy. And our social butterfly left her post. She can chart. And I told others, I said, go sit by her. She knows how to chart matches. And, she tugs me on the shoulder. She goes, do you know Mary Jo Fernandez here? I said, yes, I know she's here. Her son is playing. I'm right in front of me. And, but anyway, she ended up with this gal. The Virginia girls were watching the Virginia boys. They each played Stanford. And this gal from Italy was so nice. The conversation was going on and on. And that's in many ways, there's a negative and a positive and a negative that, so that I just took that as an opportunity the next day to say, wouldn't you like to be in that position? And, that's where, get off the couch, do the yoga, get the iPad out, do all the extras, do all the extras. Let's go one more, and then we can go to, let's go two more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go 10, 11.
10 and 11.
Start with 10. Now, can you name the famous player who played for Montreal, wore number 10?
No.
Our listeners, Montreal Canadiens. It's hockey night in Canada. I'll tell a quick story. Coaching a girl from Montreal, and she's really nervous. And I would go up to the fence, and I would just repeat hockey players who played for the Montreal Canadiens with my French accent. Jean Beliveau, and just boom, boom, Geoffrion. The coach would say, you speak French? I'd rattle off like 15 names. But Guy Lafleur, number 10. So tell us about number 10.
Number 10 likes to hit the ball. Competitive, really competitive, loves fitness. Very good serve.
Number 10 is 10 too. So remember,
number 10 is 10 as well. Yeah.
Maybe that's too much of a hint, but
yeah. Very good serve mechanics for his age. Little things can be better, of course. I think he's going to be pretty tall. His sister's tall. That's another hint.
His father. He tells me for sure, 100% he's going to be taller than his father.
Yeah. So he's going to be tall. He's going to have a big serve. He's going to have skills, tools. He's growing up in the system, so he's going to keep developing. I think with him, relaxation skills are as important as racket skills. Needs to learn to breathe. Needs to learn to have gears. He has one gear. I'm going to hit the ball as hard as I can. That's his gear. And for the past couple of months, I've been working a lot with him on consistency, even before coming here. And the big message to him since he arrived from Steve was just gears. You have to be able to have gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, gear 4. You need to have some finesse. Federer could crack a forehand, but Federer was a magician. He can do everything. Short little angle, little drop shot, come in, the saber, a tabletop approach, a conventional approach volley, a swing volley. He could loop it up. Federer could do everything. But I think number 10 just needs to learn to have a little finesse in his game. So that would be my message for number 10.
With number 10, Vic Braden, you got to be able to hit the ball 30 miles an hour too. You got to have gears. You can't hit the ball two ways, hard and harder. And there's so many things. Mini tennis. I know in Canada, young kids, they won't play much mini tennis because of the premium of indoor court time. Years ago, where kids just took a private lesson a week, it would just be playing mini tennis for Mountain Dews. Someone like a Welby Van Horn, his kids would play mini tennis all the time. And he would do drills where in Puerto Rico, the tropical rain, the court's wet, but you can go out play. But not only do you have to hit the ball slow, you're only playing in one service box. It's total touch tennis. No one's going to get hurt. And his dad based on the oldest sister, he's just spent a lot of time, mom too, observing what we do. And for example, if he were to listen to his father and mother, like he's fast, but he'll be so fast that he loses his alignment. He loses his balance. Even with running, it's always who's first. Who's first? And, that's the spirit. You don't want to have someone lose that competitive spirit. But a family story for me is my oldest brother was playing a musical instrument and there was some type of school recital. And my mother asked him, how did the after school recital go? And he said, it went great. I finished first. Well, supposedly in music, I'm going to guess that you're supposed to play together. It's not a race. But for him, everything is a race. And form tournaments, you have a lot of trickery. A lot of, if you do this, you can do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. Trying even to get him to play left-handed. It's so important to have people play with their opposite hand. I think the role that number 11 took. Go ahead on number 11.
For me, number 11, really, really good young player. After watching all the University of Virginia matches Friday and Sunday, Stanford, University of California, Virginia, 3 of the top NCAA teams. Number 11 has more skill than all of them.
More technical, tactical, physical?
I think more technical skill, more tactical skill. Physically pretty similar, I would say. So
yeah, that one, the physical, and then the mental emotional. But yeah, definitely the technical tactical. There's a few different areas, but
yes.
Keep going.
But I think with this girl, she has to understand that not every match is the end of the world. If you lose, it's not the end of the world. It's not the Titanic sinking. So for me, she just has to become, a calmer competitor, sense of enjoyment, enjoy the battle, enjoy every part of it, and just play. At the end of the day, it's called play tennis. Play means have fun. So I think she's just got to trust all the work she puts in. And when she goes out there, just play. And I think of Carlos Alcaraz. That guy always has a smile on his face. He could lose a set 6-1 and he's smiling to his box. He has a sense of enjoyment. So I think that's one. Like with number 11, it's really going to come down to the mental emotional. And tennis is 70% mental and emotional. So it's a bonus to have skills, to have tactics. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're 100% right. When we watch all those college matches, it really comes down to, mental emotional. I mean, all players have so much mental fortitude, mental resilience. They can stay so calm, so neutral, competitive monsters, competitive beasts, and yeah, physical specimens.
I think number 11 for the 3 teams that we watched this weekend, she's going to be able to help those teams put points on the board. She's already been selected by Canada. She's already traveled all over the world to represent Canada. But the parents have elected to have her work where she started, Richmond Hill. What she actually was sent to us for, 6 months, maybe 4.5. Quite some time where she was with us and didn't play points. Rebuilt her game. It's all documented. And being a lefty, good size. But I think she learned a lot about college tennis. And also, too, is that if you're, especially today, the landscape of junior tennis, if you're going to regular school and you're staying at home, she's already been on the other side where she's done some homeschooling and she's not at home. She's traveling here, there, and everywhere. She spent another 4.5, 6 months with us in Florida where she was playing. And then she's been here. There's been multiple visits. But I think she's injured. She was coaching here. And, she was telling young kids, for example, one young girl hits the ball really well, and she's been well taught, like all the students from Richmond Hill, but she's very introverted, very stubborn, and she's told to breathe, and she won't breathe. Today I had people said, every time I have to remind you to breathe, every kid in this place is going to do 5 push-ups. A little peer pressure. Oh, that's not so nice. But trying to bring this story out of someone is not about just being nice. That's one of the problems we have with coaching in America today. But she got a couple eye rolls, for example, and she expressed that it's not so easy to coach. And when you're just observing, you're not hitting. You're just watching these kids be told the same thing over and over and over again. And actually, especially with boys, I spent some time with dog trainers. I've heard the number 4,000. It takes 4,000 commands to have a dog do a task. But then when the dog is trained, they're just messing with you because it's like a kid. They like the attention. They know they're going to get the biscuit. But, the person asking the dog to sit, shake hands, don't give them the biscuit. They don't do it the first time. Don't give them the biscuit. And then they'll start doing it the first time. But so the thing about dumber than a dog is obviously they're not. They're all highly intelligent. That's not the case. It's just, do they have any common sense? Are they clever? But because there's a score, you have to tell kids a command more than 4,000 times for them to do it. And what keeps a tennis coach going in the junior trenches is that psychic income. It's not about the money. It's if you hang in there, there's going to be those kids that really use tennis as a vehicle, and they will benefit from it. Let's move on to your notes from college. Before we went, obviously this week the players, they asked about stories from Stanford, Virginia, and California. So from our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, we showed a film of Julie Scott, 7th grader, total palm-up serve, palm-up overhead. And she played at Stanford. To me, that's a wow factor. And, she was 29-1 her senior year. I believe 99%. I have to go with the fact checker. She won the last match out for them to win the team championship. She won an individual title. Sometimes the titles are NCAA or ITA, but they're national titles. I made a video for Scott Lipsky, who played doubles with Jeremy Wertzman. He did quite well on the ATP Tour playing doubles. Unfortunately, his dad passed away, I believe, when Scott was a freshman. But I made a technical video for Scott Lipsky. His dad, we're talking to him about it, and he said, I'm just going to work on Scott. This was Scott. I'm not going to change, his day-to-day and what he's doing with his coaches. But we're going to work on these technical tips. Alex Damajan at Virginia. I was running the Vic Braden Tennis College on court. I was doing the on court. Vic was older. He was doing the video. And his father's tall, his grandfather's taller. And this guy he won everything in juniors, did really well in college. Initially, I believe he won the All-Americans. He won some titles right from the get-go. They won a national championship when he was at Stanford. At Virginia. And he should have just been taught to go forward from the get-go. But when he went through the Braden camp, he was just like an 8-year-old, 9 years old. And, but, he's basically the same age as my son, both sons, Austin Krajicek. So I remember watching him grow up. Other story, Jameer Jenkins, he was sent to us twice. I was on the road with Austin Krajicek, and I had a hat. I was wearing a UCLA hat. And Jenkins got a great personality. I think he's Coach Coco Gauff's hitting partner. I mean, he was Serena's for a long time. I mean, this guy's funny. And I said, I tell you what, I'll give you $100 or you have to wear this hat the rest of the day, the UCLA hat, the Virginia guy. And I said, I'm feeding the balls and I'm going to put you through a tiebreaker test. Our listeners would know that, but it was a hit over the 9-foot mark. And it was close, but he had to wear the UCLA hat. But his picture's up on the wall. Going into Virginia now, Daniel Collins and Emma Navarro are both top 10 and both Olympians. And there's posters up. And I think that, we don't go there just to watch matches. We'll pop in and out of there when we pick a kid up at the airport. Say, okay, well, let's just show you college tennis. And a lot of times when we're there, there's no practice going on, but just to look at the banners and look at the stadium, the scoreboard, indoor, outdoor. It's just like, wow. I really think that it's so important for kids to see that when they're in elementary school. And, Wayne Bryan used to always say that you got to take them to see college tennis matches. I guess I'll save the California story. So let's go with some notes. Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'll start with the first match we watched, which was Virginia versus California, the men. So Virginia is ranked number 6 NCAA Division I, and California is ranked number 14 in the men. So mostly on the 3 courts, it started with doubles, and mostly there's very little serve and volleying. My favorite player on the Virginia team is Hopper, and Hopper served and volleyed every single time. Best instincts in doubles as well, like covered the middle, covered the center really well at the net. Really good positioning. The other player was for California, Overbeck. He served and volleyed every time. Big serve. I think Overbeck is from Denmark. Big guy, 6'3". I think he's like a 13.7 UTR. But besides that, yeah, very, very little serving and volleying, a lot of one up, one back, banging forehands in doubles, weak grips at the net, continental grips, chopping down, finessing a lot, not being able to drive volleys, not being able to stick volleys. And to me, if I'm the coach, I look at it, 2 up is number 1, 2 back is number 2, 1 up, 1 back is number 3. So if you don't trust the guy's volleys, because most probably that's what's happening, the coach doesn't trust their volleys, he asked them to play 1 up, 1 back, then have them play 2 back.
Dick Braden. Best way to play doubles is 2 up. Second best way to play doubles is 2 back. Worst way to play doubles is 1 up, 1 back. Most universally played, 1 up, 1 back. 1 up, 1 back only works against 1 up, 1 back. Actually, the California Virginia women's match, a lot more wind, but the Stanford doubles where they were trying to come in, that made Virginia even look better, regardless of who won. And one of the Virginia teams, they won the NCAA title, the individual title this fall. But for me, I could never be convinced that even though it's athletic and competitive, you could never convince me that that's how a girl should play doubles. And the boys too. It's like learn to volley, learn to go forward, learn to be a wall up at the net. Do the math. I mean, but it's changed. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was actually surprised because on that second court for the men, there was this player, Rafael Jodar. So Rafael Jodar, I think, is like a 14.10 UTR. He's the number 1 for Virginia. Great player. I'll get to him a little bit later on. But one thing he did great in singles was he really closed in on volleys. And he would close in on volleys and drive them breaking the single sideline. And he did that really well in singles. But yet in doubles, he's never coming forward. So to me, it doesn't make sense. Like his serve is good enough to serve and volley, close into IVP and just stick a volley, drive a volley. especially when the other guys are also playing one up, one back. So to me, that was a little disappointing. One of the best teams, NCAA. It just goes to show, like, you just need to really, you know, work on skills at a young age, trust skills. And to be honest, I think volleys are being taught a lot like that. Just slow down volleys, continental grip, chop down.
Lead in with the bottom edge
Yeah.
on a high ball.
Yeah.
This is what the pros do. Remember that the top pros don't say what they do or do what they say. Society is just saying, well, they must know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It was taken down, but Malcolm Gladwell, the famous author, did some work with Braden, and the YouTube clip was taken down, and he was shocked that the best tennis players in the world, this is Malcolm Gladwell from his survey or his research with Vic, is they have no idea, absolutely no idea how they hit their forehand. And tennis arguments today, they begin with the forehand and end with the forehand. And then that's where people really look at what we do and go, well, red flag, that doesn't look like pro tennis. It's not pro tennis. It's a 10-year-old, it's a 12-year-old. Or worse yet, it's a kid who can't find the court and they desperately want to play college tennis. And we're trying to save them. We're trying to, give them hope. What else you got?
Yeah, and one more comment on the doubles. This was on court 2 as well, but for the California team. So the California team would actually look to eventually move up. So they approach or find an opportunity to end up 2 up at the net, but they'd move up, then they'd stop their legs, play with their hands, and no momentum on the volleys. So they end up just, floating volleys up, trying to finesse little drop shot volleys cross. And a lot of times they'd actually lose the point. So that was the doubles kind of summed up. So really only court 1 looked like doubles. The Canadian was the only one on court 1 not serving and volleying. Keegan Rice, which was surprising because he has a low toss, turns well on the serve, good coil, just needs to get the toss a little bit more out in front to 1 p.m. Actually, serving and volleying would help with his serve development. It would help take his serve to another level. It could be a technical tool as well.
Yeah, no, it's a fact. Pretty much straight across the board. If a kid does serve and volley, they're going to get the toss in front.
Yeah.
So many young kids, when they come up, they're just so kick, got to hit kick.
Yeah.
Most young players have no idea how far, say if they're right-handed, they're tossing to the left. As you go through your notes again, we had the juniors read the bios of the players. I was doing a little bit of that today, but I read the bios of the coaches. Impressive. It's impressive the backgrounds they have. Like, wow. But again, they have, people have to understand college tennis. Okay, recruiting players, and it's not to totally rebuild players' games. It's like, okay, we're going to get this player. Maybe we're going to tweak their game, work a little bit on this, a little bit on that. But yeah, the assistant coach for California, she's number 1 in the country in the 35s, number 1 in the country in husband, wife. And just really interesting. You're talking about all Americans, national champions. I know Steve Johnson gets a lot of kudos for being Mr. College Tennis because what he did at USC. But Goldstein at Stanford, oh my word! For our listeners, just go read this guy's bio. It was 58 in the world too. But when he was at Stanford, the team won 4 championships every year. They were the national champs. What else you got?
So I'll move into the singles now. So I'll start with singles 1, which was Rafael Jodar and Karl-Emil Overbeck. So you have Spain against Denmark. And just for a little background, Rafael Jodar won the U.S. Open Juniors in 2024. He was ranked as high as number 4 ITF Juniors. But just some notes I have on those guys. So they both grew up on red clay. One of them from Denmark, you know, wintertime, cold weather,
Yeah, that's a
grows
good
up
point.
grows up on fast courts as well, probably fast carpet. So he gets that combination of fast carpet and in the summers the red clay.
You know, the Spaniards, it was like there was no hard courts, but was it what, 92 where they had the Olympics? And based on that time, there are hard courts in Spain where at one point the story goes there was no, of course, the south of Europe. They play tennis outdoors year round. But yeah, that's something that's very important with, that's something nice about your place is that the kids they are playing indoor hard, but then in the summer you get outside, you're on clay the whole time. That's great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So just by growing up on that red clay, they understand the value of just keeping the ball in the court. And when you watch these two play, it was a lot of just big targets, big fat targets, playing the fat of the court, the belly of the ship. Um, Disciplined, overall pretty disciplined. I thought one comment for both of them. Overbeck had a few more tools than Jodar. Like he had a little bit of a bigger serve, could close in a little bit better. That's not true. Not close in a little bit better, but uh, he'd have patterns. Like he'd return and volley off a second serve. He'd throw in a serve and volley once in a while. So when I talk tools, I'm probably talking a little bit more tactical tools. Um, Jodar is more, very steady. Like throughout the two days I went, I was really impressed, and Yvonne mentioned this as well. Like really impressed just with his like, in today's world we call it swagger, but his professionalism, his presence, it all goes together. His mental resilience, his mental fortitude, how neutral he stays, no ups, no downs. But the way, I'm going to give the credit to Yvonne. Yvonne said this well. He just conducts himself like a pro. He acts like a pro. He looks like a pro. When just the way he walks around, the way he reacts after points, the way he deals with adversity. So throughout the 2 days, I was quite impressed with Jodar.
I heard this years ago, oldie goldie. His name comes up quite often on these podcasts, Craig Tiley. He went from being with us for 7 years and he was at Illinois, took a team all the way to win the national championships. And I remember him saying, probably the toughest place in the world to be professional is a college campus. Like it's Tuesday. Let's party. What are you celebrating? Tuesday. What are you going to celebrate tomorrow? Wednesday. Yeah. I think that this has been said quite well by many student athletes. There's three things when you go to college. There's academics, there's your athletics, and the social side. And you can only be good at two of them. Now, you do have to pick your time to have a little bit of fun, but time management. And actually talking to some of the moms, I said, it's all about time management now. If you want to have your kid to be part of something like this, Wayne Bryan, you start in the embryo stage. I mean, it's when someone's 9 years old or halfway to the age of 18. I told a 10-year-old girl today, again, repeating myself. So I'm starting my 7th decade. She's 10. I said, you're old. You've been around 10 years. You've been around a decade. And, you got to step it up. I mean, this is what you have to do. But before our proceeding, I said, would you like to play at a place like this? She goes, oh, I would love to play. Your eyes got big. And I said, yeah, you got to go for it. But, mom and dad can't buy it. It's not on a shelf to be part of what we were. It was great entertainment. Plus for us, because of what we do as an education. Go ahead.
And I think I'll get into the technique a little bit in a second, but I think, and this goes for all the courts in the men's singles, but usually the first person to change direction lost the point. So that's where the lack of theory comes into play. Like just not understanding a 90-degree change, an inside ball, trying to change direction with a foot in the alley. And then if you make it, you're opening up the whole court. And then a lot of times they're actually just missing it as well. The net's higher, the court's shorter.
Yeah, just information. I was listening to Jonathan Stokey's Baseline Intelligence, and he had on Mike Costa, who played at Illinois, trained some with us, and he mentioned my name and said informational. We're not going to get stuck on that right now, but boom, 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 boom. Kids need to study the content. They just look at you like, you're changing it, and this is the language. You're in the neutral area of the red zone. You're in the, say, defensive area of the red zone. The ball's out of your strike zone, and you're changing the direction of the ball. And, then it goes on and on. The court's 4.5, the off by 1 degree, recovery steps, directionals, who's making who run more, promote side-to-side play. And they just need to know that. Like an NFL quarterback, are you going to be selected to be the quarterback? Are you going to be selected to be the guard on the basketball team? Kids need to be knowledgeable, and the sooner the better. And, like say we're talking tennis right now, and we've been housing tennis players really since 9/11 in this, like say a place with 20 beds. And because people before 9/11, they come and stay in hotels, and then for 6 months, all accounts were canceled. It's like, okay, we'll do this on an individual basis. And now kids, whether it's a phone, iPad, computer, they're the TV even, they put whatever they want on the TV so that it's a bigger screen. And they're not talking tennis, they're not thinking tennis, they're not living tennis. And, they don't know the red zone from the ozone. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I think that's a simple thing to work on in practice. Like Paul Wardlaw, he ran a university team. You're going to just work on 90-degree changes. You change direction from an outside ball, the whole team runs. It's simple. You keep building the physical specimens and you get them disciplined with their change of directions. Or when you decide to change direction, make sure you're hurting. So make sure you're creating a weaker ball.
But there is this in college tennis. There is a player who can't volley, won't volley, will never volley. But they can run from here to Miami or here to New York, and they're never going forward. And if they change the direction, and they can pull it off, they take the tennis out of tennis. And say, they just took, Brad Gilbert, his first book, Winning Ugly. Yeah. So in some special cases, it's winning, and that's where, once you get to one of these top schools, obviously the next step, I'd like to play pro tennis. And then there's lots of reasons that players don't go from college tennis to pro tennis. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I like this Jodar guy. Some holes, like the backhand's a hole, outside in, doesn't quite get it on the inside. Ball can definitely have more revolutions. Serve, toss gets a little on top of his head, loses some speed. Grip might be a little bit off, needs to get the toss out in front to the right. Collapses a little bit. Small changes could really help this guy, could really propel this guy to even another level. And he's already a 14, 10. 2 changes like that can bring you to a 15 pretty quickly. 15 is pro. If you look at the UTRs of pros, 15 is pro. But going back on the change of direction as well, I'll skip to court 5 because we were watching a little bit more Keegan Rice, who was on court 3, Hopper, and Jodar. So back to go ahead.
One thing on the outside in, that means the player is going from the outside of their body to their inside. They're pulling the racket from away to close. They're crowding themselves. Andy Roddick did that. And, Andy Roddick talked about how Connors, and when Connors was coaching Andy, he was talking to his late mother, Gloria. I remember hearing him say that. I just knew Gloria, Mom, what do you think? But he said how Jimmy really helped him out by telling him that when he hits a backhand, his left elbow, he's got to be really loose. I like to just hang in there and listen for this and listen for that. But again, with Hopper, I try to point this out to the players with us, is that we made a study of his tennis a year ago with played Division III tennis. He's a graduate student. It's just a great story. We're played Division III tennis. Go ahead. I saw him play where this team won the Nationals.
Yeah. And one more quick comment on Jodar, because I spoke about the flaws, but amazing forehand, beautiful forehand, circular, simple, loose, great use of the body, beautiful forehand. The best forehand I saw in the 2 days by far.
And here's a gem from Braden. The spin is an indicator of your swing. So a guy like that is going to hit clean, true top. He's going to get the RPMs.
But then, so going back to Hopper, his singles game, and I'm going to talk a little bit, this is kind of combining his 2 days because I got to watch him on both days. His singles game could take a lesson from his doubles game. In doubles, he moves forward, he serves in volleys, he returns in volleys. In singles, he stays back, he runs around backhands from neutral area of the red zone, hits IP, overplays down the line, doesn't understand the 4.5 extra feet of court by playing cross court. One big thing is when you change direction. So when you play down the line, you really have to generate force from your body to change direction of the ball to create a plus. And a lot of times, especially on his backhand side, Hopper's staying down, blocking his hips, no lift. So blocking elevation, blocking rotation, changing direction of the ball with his backhand. And he's hitting weak IPs. And then the guy just cracks it cross and he's on the defensive. And this is important for all the listeners because, this is a discussion with even some of our players back at Richmond who are not, who I'd consider a little bit more part-timers with our information, with our program. But they're into this, we got to stay down. We got to be stable. We got to stay down. We got to stay down. But you're not generating any force if you stay down. And the proof is in the pudding. So that was one big thing with Hopper. I would have liked him to move forward more in singles. I would have liked to see a little bit more patterns from him in singles. He's an amazing competitor. He's a beast, physical specimen, tree trunk legs.
Great fighter.
A sense of enjoyment, so many positives. But just get this guy to move forward a little bit more. The guy, if I was the coach, I would just tell him, like, Hopper, you're going to serve and volley once per game. Baby steps. Just you're going to serve and volley once per game. And on a second serve return, if it's a green light point, you're going to return and volley.
Well, one thing about his doubles, he hit a lot of two-handed volleys that were not executed with a lot of explosiveness, but he was in the right place and hitting them in the right place. So, it's where is he hitting it from? Where is he hitting it to? He was forward and he was taking the volleys to the inside of the players to the middle, not going to the outside, giving them options. Mm-hmm. High-level doubles, typically, the point ends as minus F. It's like boom, boom, and more boom. If big-time doubles, you got to be able to make 2 shots. You got to be able to make a serve and a volley. And it's the same thing. Do you do the math? If you win 2 out of 3, you're going to do awesome. You're going to hold serve. And then can you make one? Can you make the return? Make the return and then go from there. But can you return? Go ahead.
So Hopper was playing this Polish freshman. Hopper's a graduate student, so that's a 5-year difference. He was playing this Polish freshman. Long name, I'll say it because it's kind of interesting. But Jonathan Erwanto Frederick Leszno Wojniewski. Long name. And this Polish kid, it's interesting how players play when they're up and when they're down, with scoreboard pressure. But this Polish kid at the beginning of the match was looking to move forward. More. Doesn't have the best skills at the net. Finesses too many volleys, but he was looking to like take balls out of the air, move forward. And the second score got a little tight. Started backing up, playing a little bit like Hopper. So it ended up being kind of a like 12 and under match where they're just bigger, stronger, hit the ball a little bit harder, but they're just playing from behind the baseline. They're just playing red zone tennis. That match just came down to nerves, competitiveness. I think this Jonathan guy. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the Polish Davis Cupper, the men's coach for California, read his bio, started at Tennessee, transferred to UCLA. He won the last match out for his team to win nationals. I think it was 2005. Just my recall from reading his bio earlier. But he was a member of the Polish Davis Cup team. World War I, World War II. My father, we used to drive through this town, and especially it would be in the spring after the winter. And my father said, check out this town. Cleanest town in the United States. Look at every yard. Look at the garden. It was a Polish community. And the Poles have such great work ethic where they had to rebuild their country many times based on World War II. But you can't categorize, but typically, I've trained some Polish tennis teachers and such. Work ethic, to get to play at this level, work ethic wins. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think that match just came down to nerves. The Polish guy was ahead, had a couple match points. Hopper just keeps fighting. Polish guy got a little tight tactically.
That term sticking volleys, we're watching Denis Shapovalov. He was at your club for 10 years, and Richard Hernandez gave his mom, Tessa, a job, and she was learning English. And I remember maybe it was bi-weekly, but I would talk to the staff for an hour, and it was just very common that coaches don't accept that racket face being square on a volley when it's above the level of the net. And that's where you got to use high-speed film. But when that ball's above the level of the net, you need to stick it. Stick it means get hit by a stick. There's too many soft volleys, and when the players go cross-court, they weren't putting the ball away. And I think for our juniors, it seemed like everybody there had great wheels. Mind, mobility, mechanics. Where they struggle is mechanics. And if they struggle in mechanics, then it's going to turn into some holes in their game tactically. But no, the footwork. But he wasn't reluctant to come in, though, the Polish player.
No, he would come in.
He was committed, yeah.
On tight moments, he wouldn't, and that cost him.
And that, I guess some messages today. This girl, Alanis Hamilton, she's playing for UNC. Cole Reeves taught her how to play. I mean, she was brought to me, 8, 9 years old, off and on, like your groups, a week here, a week there. And then she did spend 2 weeks with us in Florida. Now she spends time with Dave Anderson. But there was some hiccups where she was not around coaches that understood how she was trained. But one of our students is a fan. Ayaz Patel is hers. Ayaz's sister, Sophia Patel, has played at UNC. But I got a text that said, yeah, she got her holding the line. If you can stick the first volley deep, it's like saying the Samper's coming in, squaring that racket face out, and driving that volley to someone who's got an extreme grip on the forehand side. They're going to do A-okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, technically Hopper, similar to Jodar. Jodar is maybe able to create a little more RPM, a little better with his body. But Hopper on that backhand side, also outside in, very little use of the ground. The number one power source in tennis is ground force. It's definitely a big hole. Even this across all courts, but didn't see one drive underspin in 2 days. Just a lost art. It's too bad. It's all these like float side spin / underspins, just off pace shots, but nobody's using the drive underspin as a weapon. And such a weapon on the like drive and underspin approach, drive and underspin from the baseline, follow it up, crack a forehand. The classic.
Really, the float slice should be, in our school of thought, should be called an emergency shot. It's like, okay, let's tweak that. It's okay. A basic shot, specialty shots, emergency shot.
Yeah. Then I'll get to Keegan Rice, which is
from Saskatchewan.
So that's impressive.
Come on. Tennis players. I remember hearing of him. Tennis players are from everywhere. Saskatchewan.
Not a very big guy.
The program says he's 5'10".
I think he's a little shorter.
Yeah.
A little shorter.
A lot of programs will do that.
Serve is in the ballpark. Turns well, turns and tosses low, but toss goes a little over his head, ends up being IP because of the toss. But definitely in the ballpark, not far off. Unfortunately, it's IP because of the toss. So
IP being in play, yeah.
Just an in-play shot. It's not a weapon. He's not getting free points off of it. As far as his game goes, he understands also belly of the ship, fat of the court, play with big targets, play through the center. His forehand creates good revolution, creates decent revolution on it. It has a little bit of an extra segment, like has a little bit of a backswing once the ball's bouncing. But good revolution. Backhand's a hole. Understands how to put it in, understands how to play with it, but it's a hole, outside in. Also stays down, a little bit like Hopper. That's pretty common across all the courts, I would say, in the men. His opponent won the match because of aggressive error margin. The opponent finesses too many volleys, definitely could stake more volleys, but came to the net 17 times and won 15 out of 17 points. So green zone is going to beat red zone. And just by coming forward, just by playing the right way, put the skills aside.
For our listeners though, not in the 12s.
Yeah,
that's where, out of principle, so the kid who is getting 100% of the balls back, and they're playing against the kid who's coming to the net to lose at a faster rate. They're going to get passed, they're going to get lobbed. But if they get to the point where they can execute 2 out of 3, then the all-court player. And that's where across the board today, people don't really understand tennis geometry, tennis statistics. And that's one of the reasons that we are doing these podcasts, that tennis teaching needs to improve.
Yeah. So California won that match. I think it was 3-3 against Keegan. But same thing. Keegan is not playing a game that promotes, moving up to the net. He's running around backhands from the neutral area of the red zone. So he's promoting he's playing east to west. He's not playing north to south. So again, just if I'm training this guy, if I'm training all these guys in practice, just more situations where they got to close in, more combo situations, take them out of their comfort zones.
And that's where with Jacobson, if they were just to understand green light points, I know Carlos Coffey, tournament tough. He's somebody that we certainly spent time with in years gone by, decades gone by. But hey, you're up 40 love. I always tell parents, child, hey, you're playing the 12s. If you're up 40 love and you serve and volley, no one will know. You can do it every time, and no one will know. People are just not that observant. That's my opinion. But if you don't do it when you're young, it's going to be tough to do it when you're old.
Yeah.
Sooner the better. Go ahead.
I'll move on to the women's matches because I was basically just watching those three courts, and Hopper's match ended up being 7-6 in the third, so that was the clincher. So moving on to the women's, um, I can speak about both doubles. So the doubles against California and the doubles against Stanford. So the doubles against California, zero serve and volleying, zero return and volleying, uh, weak grips at the net, a lot of regressed palm up on the serves, high tosses. Um, just it just comes down to athleticism and competing. And I was a little disappointed with the number one doubles because they won the NCAA championships, and I know one of the girls from Reputation in Canada, Melody Collard. She's always been, um, had the reputation of a crafty player who serves in volleys, mixes it up, approaches in volley. I know her coach because he also worked with a player who's working with us now, Netta. His name is Mathieu Toupin. And one thing I like about the way he coaches is I'll have 6-year-olds serving and volleying, 7-year-olds serving and volleying, and you don't see that too often. So I liked hearing those stories. But yeah, that's to me that's probably just her coaches telling her not to serve and volley because it's a little that I found that a little surprising. Um, but still, Melody has great skill, like good half volleys, good feel, understands when to throw up a defensive lob, um, would move forward at times, would move forward off an approach, would move forward, would cover the center well. She was by far the best doubles player on the three courts, and had the best skill at the net. Not the best grips, but the best skill. I think I saw her drive 3-4 volleys. Um,
Great competitor, fun to watch.
yeah, but the other courts, I don't really have a way to describe it. It was a little bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it was windy. Both teams. Yeah, it's when Stanford showed up and they were trying to get to the net. It was a
Prove a
calmer
lot.
day weather-wise. But yeah, in a lot of ways, it looks like 3-5 ladies, super really good athletes playing 3-5 lady doubles.
Yeah.
And I like the term intent. With intent to get to the net. Okay, we're a hybrid. We're not going to serve and volley, but we're going to serve and come in on the next ball. The thing is that when they play singles, it's like you don't see too many overheads. You don't see too many volleys. So
they look scared.
Yeah,
when they move forward, they look like they don't want the overhead.
The phrase from last week: "Be prepared, not scared." And yeah, they're scared to miss. They spend year after year. Okay, they're 9, they're 10, they're 11, they're 12. One of the reasons that we see poor mechanics on volleys is the ratio of balls hit. I did a video today, and the player has just huge backswings on the forehand side, backhand side. 13-year-old player, but they just haven't differentiated. Now that's where coming back to mini tennis, touch tennis. I'd love that. We call it mini tennis 3, where you play in one box. You have to serve volley. Even if you have kids that are afraid of the ball, that play with the foam balls, but get to the net. One thing, not to digress, but one of the days we were in there twice, so I rode with you the second day. I don't know if Yvonne knows this, but we listened to podcast 199, where Yvonne went on what Miran Mann called the rant. And he just went, it sounded like, well, that was critical, that was critical, that was critical. But it was really factual. But again, the players are very, very good in so many ways. But the Virginia team, for sure, it's a safe bet, if not a sure thing. They're going to be hosting a round of 64, round of 32. And I think, we're going to be traveling some in May, but I think it may work out where we could be in there watching. And, with it's the doubles it's very entertaining, the scoring system. It's a sprint to 6, no ad. I disagree with it, but it is entertaining for the fans. And that point is so huge. You win that point, the other team has to win 4 singles. It's huge. And, I think you can work with players and say, all right, let's work on this and practice. Okay, go play the way you want. Go play the way you want to play, but this is what we're going to do in practice. At least in practice, we're going to be principled, and this is what we're going to do. For me, I go to the extreme. I'd rather lose playing the wrong way than win playing. How's it go? I'd rather lose playing the right way than win playing the wrong way. You're up.
Yeah, well, I'll move on to singles now. They ended up losing to California, and it was very entertaining. I think every court was 6-4. Maybe the third doubles was 6-3, and that match ended up being costly because they lost to California. So the doubles was very important. But moving on to the singles, like one of the girls, I think for California, I'll find her name here. I think it was Lan Mi. So she was playing third for California. Crooked technique. 6-part serve, 6-part serve, full horizontal, no hitting zones, forehand or backhand. I'm not even sure how she was able to make the ball in the court, but she's a 10.6 UTR. An amazing fighter, amazing competitor, emotional. Like the coach had to console her after every point, but she just found a way to just fight and fight and fight and just grind the other girl down.
I believe that's the same player that where I was sitting. The California men came and they brought their food and they were watching the women's match. And one of the guys said, if I had so-and-so's intensity, I could be a player. It was one of the lineup guys who said that too.
Yeah.
So they just respect her fight.
Yeah, you have to respect her fight.
Unbelievable. And so that's from a recruiting standpoint. I've coached, and you know this. I've coached so many kids that have pretty technique, but it doesn't hold water. It's a major bonus. I would say the technical information is almost like a secret weapon. It's just not. It's not understood throughout tennis. Really, it's amazing. Not by a large segment of coaches. Coaching is human relationship, teaching is information transfer. There's a brain drain when it comes to information. So then from a recruiting standpoint, earlier in the year, we were at Baylor University, and, we were around the team and the women's team. We watched the men's team practice. And for the most part, I'm not speaking about Baylor, but just thinking back about that long weekend, that are the coaches going to go? Are they recruiting based on form? Or are they recruiting based on character and who can gut it out? And the expression you used to hear is that I'd like to go to war with that kid. And so
comes down to who you trust in the lineup. Who do you trust to pull it off? Who do you trust to compete? Yeah,
and for our listeners, I know I can tell so many stories about kids who tanked. They gave up. They're finally playing for something bigger than themselves, and they tanked. Coach never trusted them again. Some of our players, they ended up being contributors as far as doubles goes. On a Monday morning, Division 1 and 2 and 3, I could spend a lot of time. I don't do it every Monday, but is just go to all the different websites and see what the scores were. And we have, if somebody follows our content, they'd be hard pressed not to make a doubles lineup as a freshman with you get into the men more, I think that the physicality, you could say, well, the kid's 18, 19 years old. He's playing against somebody 23, 24, maybe with COVID, a grad student. It's like a boy versus a man. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I think for that match with me, she was playing this girl Chervinsky, who's the highest ranked on the ITA rankings for Virginia, but she plays third for them. Strong girl, uh, likes to hit the ball big with her forehand, like a lot of players in today's world. Um, but just having the skills to throw up 3, 4, 5 high, heavy, arching topspin balls to this girl's backhand, the the girl wouldn't be able to make the ball. It's a guaranteed minus, changes direction on the wrong time, at the wrong time, or a miss. But not once did Chervinsky get the ball out of Mi's strike zone. Everything was waist level. She can just play horizontally, fight and swing horizontally. So that just comes down to skill.
Well, I think one thing with so many players, men and women, they want to, at all costs, they want to hit a forehand. Say it's a righty, so they're moving to their left. And now their shoulder is loose, and they're going with the grain. They have a huge court to swing into. And, so freedom, racket speed, more revolutions, more spin. And then when you do film work, you see players all the time, the ball is coming towards their backhand, and they initially turn for a forehand, but they have to hit a backhand. So then they're late, and then they're crowded, and then they don't have many reps. It's like Djokovic. What is he, 37, 38 years old? And sounds like, so people beat him up. They're like, are you kidding me? This guy is one. It's just unbelievable. But he, for the most part, when we say stays in the pocket, like a quarterback, they're going to stay in the pocket, and it's pro-style football. Great. A Matthew Mahomes has got the ability to look like a shortstop when he plays quarterback. And Andy Reid, like one of the greatest minds in football, knows that. So he's got options based on his athletic ability. But the play is for him to stay in the pocket. So if he has to adjust, he can adjust. I think in American society, we've said it many, many times, the girls, for sure, they need to understand American football. Line of scrimmage, controlling the clock, getting the first down, possession. We use the analogy all the time where a person's running through the line of scrimmage, they're hanging on to the ball with two hands. Or if they don't, 100,000 people in the stadium are screaming because it's going to be a fumble, and a fumble is a fumble. In football, it just takes 1, 2, 3 fumbles, interceptions, mishaps. But really, there's so many unforced errors. Now, what we did before we went in the second day, so there was a Friday and a Sunday, is we took 2 teenage boys who hit the ball reasonably well. And, they still, an 8th grader and 9th grader, they still have some time. And granted that, I wasn't trying to make them feel bad, but, you get 25 people watching him. I go, this might be the biggest audience they've ever played in front of. So, we've got juniors and we got some parents, and we're up on the balcony looking over and we're charting it. And you got to move your feet. You got to breathe. You got to make balls. You got to be able to rally. And the beauty of just taking one ball, we did that in practice today. 3 indoor tennis courts, 3 tennis balls, 1 ball per court. That's it. And, you're going to rally. You're just going to rally. Just keep the ball in play. And today I tell people all the time, you're playing against somebody, they don't even volley. They don't volley. I mean, arc the ball, hit a deep ball. Agassi used to say that, you hit one high arcing forehand, now you're on offense because the ball's going to bounce out of the strike zone. What's up?
Yeah, I'll build on that actually, and I'll fast forward to Sunday's women's match, where I got to watch the number 2. So the number 2 is playing. So it was Annabelle Xu against a local girl from Stanford. I forget the name. But she had two hands on both sides. She had a two-handed forehand. And it was exactly that. They're sending up high balls, high looping balls that should just be easy swing volleys, easy conventional approach volleys, moving in, and the girls are just letting them bounce. And even worse, the high looping balls are going to the backhand side. They're letting them bounce. They're running almost to underneath the bleachers to hit a forehand. They're running everywhere just to hit a forehand.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But going back on Travinsky, also her match on Sunday. The girl she played on Sunday for Stanford was injured and served underhand the whole match. And every serve is an approach shot. Every return of serve is an approach shot. And Travinsky is hitting and retreating, hitting and retreating. Once in a while she'd go up, but then it's like a fish out of water, finessing volleys. Even one time, this is criminal, but the girl serving the girl serving underhand ended up at the net, finished the point at the net. So it's just, again, building the instincts, building the skills, but those instincts, those skills have to be built when kids are 12, 13, when they're young, when they're in developmental years. And then I'll fast forward to the number one singles for Virginia. That was probably the match with the most discipline tactically. They would split the court. They'd play forehands when it's on the forehand side, backhands when it's on the backhand side. When they'd run around to create something with the ball. So the number one for Virginia was the Italian girl that our extrovert, the social butterfly I was talking to, Ziodata, I think was her name. And she was playing a girl, Mushika, from California. With that, it really came down to just for Ziodata, it really came down to directionals. Lost a lot of points just changing direction from the wrong position, just trying to pull the trigger from outside the alley line. The other girl, Mushika, was in control of the match, got a little bit tight tactically, but up until like second set the score was pretty tight. Up until that point, she was moving forward. She was looking to come in, constructing well, forehand able to create some RPM. That match was pretty good, the number one singles match, and I was really impressed with their mental fortitude and resilience. Because at one point, you had all the University of Virginia guys, all the University of California guys cheering, stomping on the stands, point after point, and the girls were just able to stay in their bubble, keep their cool. So I think that's powerful for all our kids to see, for any young tennis player to see, just the mental toughness.
Yeah, I think one thing with the players, 6 courts in a row, is much better than some places have, especially indoors. They have 3 and 3. The nice thing about that is that, you get above there's a spectator area above the courts. But just to see all 6 courts in a row and how you can look at the scoreboard. We gave the kids the option, why don't you look at each match and chart 10 points? But if you want to just stick to one match and watch the whole thing, there's so much learning that can take place. But, for the group, basically straight across the board, the parents too, it was a first time experience for all of them.
Yeah.
They had never seen a college tennis match. And it's amazing to me how many people they're trying to bring up juniors to play college tennis. They've never seen college tennis. It's not a cakewalk. I had a mother ask me one time, where do we sign up? You don't. Tracy Austin says about pro tennis. Pro tennis will find you. You don't find pro tennis, but it's actually with that level of college tennis. You don't find college tennis. College tennis will find you. Next on your notes.
Yeah. I'll fast forward a little bit. So I'll because I have a lot of notes. So
no, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll fast forward to the Stanford match on Sunday. So I'll just read through some of my notes. can't drive the volley, no options. We spoke about this, but throw up a high ball. If they don't take it out of the air, they won't come in. You can do that all day. You won't lose. That comes down to that Annabelle match. You can just throw it up. At one point, the girl with the two-handed forehand is just on her backhand side is just slicing, float slicing, minuses, cross court. Annabelle's just running around, trying to force with the forehand, but the girl's just floating.
Well, one thing for me, I watch those matches and say, well, this is, if I was, you could, all the coaches I've trained over the years, you can manufacture a lesson. Hey, watch that person hit a few serves, and okay, what would you do? The art is where you start. But the girl with the two-handed forehand, freshman, 5'4", from Washington, the Northwest, sister played at Virginia. There's this, the day before, there was a girl from Montreal who you know, plays for California, and then the older sister plays for Virginia. It's like, okay, what kind of Kool-Aid do they have in that household to get two kids to that level? But yeah, the young kid from Washington, her body's going left and back. She's going it's counterproductive in two ways. And when she hits the ball, obviously there's a lot of noise with the audience, but you really can't hear the sound. The physical characteristics are speed, spin, trajectory, and sound. If you can't hit this, you don't hear the sound, they're not generating much force. Then also too is that her alignment with the racket is not that far off. And you can have a continental grip and have the racket face be vertical. It's like Rod Laver revolutionized tennis with hitting top, and he didn't have an Eastern grip. So he had in between a continental, he had a composite. And, he would just push the palm down and didn't have as long a hitting zone, and he was the rocket. So you can make adjustments with the grip. It's like John McEnroe, strong continental grip, but you get the elbow up high and, the racket face. All you got to do is look at high-speed film. But yeah, her footwork, her balance, that young girl, just a few tweaks here and there, just jump up. A lot of the players just jump up. They could just make a couple adjustments technically and therefore tactically.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Annabelle's backhand is pretty good, and she's avoiding it and running around. Like, just understanding that if she hits a backhand, she takes time away. She's better set. She takes time away. She can take the ball earlier. She could move forward. And I saw her drive a couple forehand volleys. The forehand volley was not that off.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched her play a bunch. Good body type, tall, lean, and played a lot of tennis. So many things that jump perhaps ahead in your notes, but Roy Horowitz. I mean, it would be difficult to change his forehand, the grip he has. But the brain can make the calculation. He's driving that backhand flat, but the calculation. But what a competitor, what a mover. And that's certainly the challenge of a college coach. It's a completely different challenge than, we have some kid who's 8, could be 14, and, they're playing sectional or provincial tennis, and, there's no compromising, there's no negotiating. It's not a matter of working within. But that's the dilemma for a college coach. They get a transfer perhaps. New coach takes over, and, they could have somebody who's in their senior year. It's their first year. So there's all sorts of variables. How many lab sciences a kid is taking. But so many of our guests, David Getz said it quite well. Hey, it's Tuesday and you got a big match on Saturday. How much secret sauce can you dish out? Go ahead.
Yeah, and then Melody Collar, so the young girl from Gatineau, Quebec.
Yeah.
Fun to watch. Really competitive, really good energy on the court, crafty, skillful.
Is that a small town? How's that relationship to Montreal?
It's next to Ottawa, and Ottawa's the capital, but it's
right.
It's small. It's government. It's small.
Yeah.
Gatineau is like just across the bridge, so it's a little smaller than Ottawa, I would say, but
So,
it's small. It's like 2 hours from Montreal.
so most likely she English Canadian, not a French Canadian.
Both.
Both. Okay.
I think you learned to speak both there.
One of like Hull, Ontario. I remember there's the French are on the left and the English are on the right. Way back when the hockey players, the Ontario and the Quebec hockey players didn't get along too well back in the day. Go ahead.
But I know her from reputation and from watching her as well. She's a girl that likes to come in. She likes to be at the net. She likes to volley. Finesses a lot, but likes to volley and drives a few volleys as well. But too many drop shots. Too many drop shots.
That as well, right?
I was just charting it, yeah, and I think she hit something like close to 12 drop shots in the second set, and maybe won the point twice.
I thought you had 14 and 2.
It might have been 14, yeah.
Yeah.
And only won the point twice. Like just showing her those numbers, so powerful. Just approach, turn the drop shot into an approach.
Well, that's one thing. The student athletes are quite busy. Make an understatement. The cameras on the court. You know, I'm sure that the parents of the players, the family of the players, friends, the matches were streamed and they could be watched. You can watch most college tennis matches. Warren Pretorius with Tennis Analytics. He's got a crew in his native South Africa that will chart matches, and they're putting what they call a kid's locker. But my experience is that a lot of coaches, they just say there's not enough time. And it's more of a recruiting tool to chart the players. And, we can take a match and say, okay, let's do 10 minutes in the beginning, 10 minutes in the middle, 10 minutes at the end. If you watch 20 points of a match, you have a good handle on how it's going to go. But then it's going to be clutch time and who's going to execute. But pretty much what you see is what you get. A lot of times, unfortunately, people don't have the options to change a losing game. I know Dave Anderson is going to be on next week. He's out at the Easter Bowl. I was once at the Easter Bowl with Vic Braden, and he said, hey, if someone's a little better than you, you might as well just mail in the scores. Because, if Bill Tilden, match play, spin of the ball, if someone's better baseline to baseline, net beats baseline. But if you don't have those options, and that's how you have to be creative in practice.
I think it even comes down to Jannik Sinner. Like how are guys going to beat Jannik Sinner? So solid from the baseline. He's better off the ground than everybody right now. So how are you going to beat him? Somebody's going to have to come along who has the skills to move forward. I think Alcaraz might be the only one, but
I think you have to listen to the players. With Nadal, he's asked, how do you beat Nadal? He goes, that's easy. Don't miss and be super aggressive. And, to be super fit, being able to hit the ball high and through the middle. I mean, center is so good, but he's not taking balls out of the air. And certainly his snow skiing, his movement. But you're going to have a great serve too, because center is going to hold serve with that serve his. And hopefully over time, so he's going to add to his game. I mean, he would not be the person to choose to say, okay, we're going to copy how he volleys. But, if someone is serving like that, it's going to be like Bjorn Borg. He won Wimbledon in 76. He was in the finals 6 years in a row, won 5 in a row. First summer, he was injecting himself. He was injected with Novocaine because he pulled his muscles in his stomach because he changed his toss. You got it out in front, out to the right, and all of a sudden you get a new serve. And so if you have a great serve and you have some calculation, it's like, say, Kyrgios. He's got a lot of play on volleys. In other words, calculation. The angular axis is on the backhand side extremely open. But when you've got a bazooka gun, and the other guy, how Vic would say it, your opponent has a bazooka gun and you've got a pea shooter. Engage weapon number one. So yeah, there's some players that are making a lot of money on the pro tour that don't have great overall games, but they've got great serves. And in all credit, okay, They got to be able to do something right if they're. I mean, just to win one ATP match. A lot of these men and women, they're really, really good players. Hats off to them. But you can track college tennis players. How many of them will play main tour, ATP, WTA events? We've coached a lot of kids who've been top 10 in the NCAAs. They didn't play 10 ATP, WTA matches at the big show. Patrick, you're up again.
All right. Well, just to finish off with Melody, but she ended up pulling through. I think it was 6-4, 7-6.
Yeah, and when that happened, the girl from Washington, she was 1 point away from winning. And then on the last court, the opposing team, they were 1 game away from winning. So if the girl could have won the tiebreaker, beat Melody Collard, that could have extended the match. And if they had won that 1 point on one court and won that 1 game on another court, because they ended up being 4-0, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that match is extended, the Stanford player wins the tiebreaker. Now that's going into the third set, and it's still 3-0, but no, now it's 3-2.
And it's tight everywhere.
Yeah, and the players know that. So it's like say one team goes down 2-0. You can really change the match completely.
Yeah. I also had that Collard also has an inversion, big preparation on the forehand. And a lot of times she ends up on her back foot. A lot of times she ends up playing forehand slice. So I think it hurts her if she's a player whose identity is to move forward, come to the net, which from everything I've heard about her, she is. You want all your tools to be promoting a forward moving game. So I think just simplifying that invert would definitely help her, but that's a big change. So sometimes you got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward.
Well, you've used the term IP. She's playing against the Sabalenka.
Trouble.
You're hitting IPs. Your ball you're lacking MPH and RPM. You don't have speed or spin, and it's just gonna be a shootout. Boom, boom.
Yeah. So I'll move on to the men now. So I'll just read through some of my notes, but improvise later once you have a good base. Men's lineup 1 through 6 based on how big they hit their forehands, how big they hit their serves. 3 players in the doubles were serving and volleying. Hopper again, Patrick, he played third doubles for Stanford, and Godsick. Godsick, backhand volley is a liability. But he must, and I learned this from you, but he spent a lot of time in Federer's box as a kid, so must have learned a lot visually. Hopper gets by on tactics, sometimes awful shots, but gets away with it based on positioning. I'm talking in doubles. His singles game can take a lesson from his doubles game. Henry, a young player who spent some time with you when he was 8, and I think again a little bit older. He's got some problems on his serve, lacking some knowledge, but amazing athlete. Wheels, sense of enjoyment. At one point, Henry was down a double break in the first set, and you commented to me Henry should play for the second set. Play the first set, play the first couple of games to figure out how to play the rest of the match. I think that's powerful for a lot of our players here too. Dietrich, who plays number 2 for Virginia, big guy, 6'3", huge forehand, but he's a one-trick pony. Serve can definitely be a lot bigger. Tosses over his head, doesn't toss in front. But just looks to crack forehands. Just looks to slap forehands, outpower his opponents. Whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to hit it big. If I lose, I'm going to lose swinging. And there's positives to that. But that's how I would describe Dietrich for Virginia. Interesting interesting momentum how people play ahead and behind. Hopper, I thought Hopper, when Henry started coming back a little bit in that first set, Hopper started backing up, playing more defensive, not playing as aggressive, not working the pocket as well from the baseline. Directionals and spin. I think that summarizes that summarizes all the backends. Not much spin, directionals in general, just understanding when and how to change direction. But people not in tune with mechanics. God's sake, backhand volley can take a lesson from his forehand volley. God's sake has to play more backhands, doesn't use it, doesn't promote a forward moving game, which are two important changes to his game, because I like that kid. Serves in volleys, returns in volleys, good serve, little regress palm up like Federer, but good serve. Has patterns, which is rare. I didn't see many patterns in the 2 days. Just make the approach shot, just lift. Guys won't take it out of the air. Hopper in singles, GVP to IVP, gets a volley at GVP, doesn't cut off the next one on a diagonal, but in doubles, he closes right in. Presence, professionalism. Rafael Jodar intimidates with his walk, his eyes, how he behaves between points, looks like a pro. This comes from Yvonne, but if you want to be a really good player, you can't miss ground strokes off IP balls. Because we saw Kyle Kang. So Kyle Kang won the U.S. Open the year before Jodar. Really good player.
Yeah.
Big forehand. Strong guy. But at one point in the tiebreak, in the second set tiebreak, which he won, but on a crucial point, I think it might have been 4-4, he just misses an IP forehand from neutral area of the red zone cross in the net. Like that can't happen. You want to play at a high level, that can't happen. But those are, I kind of sped through my notes a little bit because I can go on and on.
Well, a couple of things on this end. Fonseca was scheduled to play. The Brazilian was scheduled to play at Virginia this year. Diana Schneider, I think she's been as high as 12 in the world. She played 1 year at NC State. She lost some matches when she played college tennis on any given day. So with Fonseca, it's like someone that Yvonne knows well. We've talked about Alex Mickelson. He was going to go to Georgia. Had a really good summer. Obviously, Fonseca did the same thing. I would think that Gotzik needs to, and I think he will, how's it go? You're 22, 23 years old. That, he'll fill out a little bit more, get a little more muscle mass. The backhand volley hurt him in doubles, where you said his backhand volley, I guess I said it, his backhand volley could take a lesson from his forehand volley. I remember you saying, best forehand volley out here. Just he comes forward. I think he serves really well. His feet are really good. I think that he does pull his forehand back a little bit behind him. With some humble pie too. I mean, he wasn't like he was in every match as a freshman. I've seen him play a bunch. I saw him play at Coral Gables in the 12s, the Orange Bowl. I've seen him at, of course, Eddie Herb at Battle of Boca. And just think about that kid growing up courtside. Even when he was playing the Orange Bowl, there was a buzz is that that guy is Roger Federer's agent. His father, Tony Gotzik, went to Dartmouth. They have a daughter who plays lacrosse at Dartmouth. That's another story. Well, okay, two athletes, Division I sports, but also two highly acclaimed schools. Just a little tweak on the backhand volley. But just think about growing up, watching Federer. I mean, at one point he just was hitting underspin backhands, and Fed could use that as such a great tool. And most kids can't really hit an effective underspin backhand. I know. So I enjoyed watching him play. Henry, I think I would be a familiar face to his mom. They came over from Germany. They were living in Dusseldorf. David Squire sent him to us. He was with us for a week. And when his name comes up, I tell the story. Squire said he'd be able to do more double jumps than anybody. He's 8 years old. He could do 80 double jumps. And he said, Squire told me, Squire's a lifelong guy in tennis, took lessons from Charlie Hollis. Sons of another Henry. That's another lesson on these podcasts is David Squire's son, Henry, was buddies with Henry. How you pronounce his name? Von Schnullenberg. So the two Henrys took lessons growing up. And, Henry Squire, he's played some majors. I guess he's like 150 in the world. Mark Hamlin had a lot to do with his tennis game. He got off course a little bit. Andy Fitzgerald had a lot to do with his tennis game. But I read his bio. Ivy League champion, number 20 in Switzerland, Swiss junior champion. And he's got a younger brother, Jeffrey, who played at, but Jeffrey didn't come to see me, so Henry's only 8. But I was in Zurich one time where they moved to and was there for another week. And I think they have a sister who, I think she competes for the U.S. I think she also was one of the Ivy League schools and his crew. So just an unbelievable family. They should be able to tell you they have an aunt who, she's famous. She's part of this famous TV show.
You told me Law and Order.
Yeah, I think that's the name of it. It's about sexual assault in New York City, and it's been on for like 20 years. And I would guess Rita Hayworth, her mother's famous from years gone by. I was introduced to the U.S. Open. I said, "Hey, I'm innocent." But Henry, he was down, but he's a lot bigger guy than the kid next to him, his teammate Nico Gotzik, but he just competed. And our guys watching, we have so many kids. They're just the kids that we had to play an exhibition. They're just both panic stricken. I tell people, I yell it all the time. Hey, kid, you're not on the Titanic. We got a lifeboat for you, and
enjoyment.
Yeah, it just plays so tight. Is that with no, I certainly was at some under 14 tournaments watching both Henry and his brother play, but he dug it out. But he's a graduate assistant, and obviously the passion for tennis. I understand Jeffrey's giving pro tennis a go, but with
like he misses that forehand volley at 5-3, 40-40 set point. Easy forehand volley right on top of the net, and just turns to the crowd, smiles it off, laughs it off.
Yeah, he still was in the driver's seat, but
yeah,
but it was a huge point. It was match point, right?
That was set points, first set.
Set point, and but two warriors. I guess we're not supposed to use the term warrior. It's not war, but they're just competing. The footwork. No, it's Division I tennis. I know a French coach who says it. The first division, they separate. We hear kids all the time. I get tired of it. I want to play D1, D1, D1. No, you just want to play. And again, Hopper playing D3 tennis.
Inspirational.
Yeah. Any other notes?
Those were my notes.
Okay.
I fast forwarded a little bit, but
no, it's all good. Let's wrap it up. Where I said I would tell a couple of stories. I told a couple about Stanford. I think it was good as these kids, on our course, Julie Scott, pizza position, palm up, pull down. One summer, I had a girl who, I think it was American dad, Australian mom, last name Johnson. And they came to spend, like, say, a month with me, work on their game. She, after college, was going to play pro tennis. And I remember I had CompuTennis and charted, and Julie lost to her 6-6. But that planted a seed. She thought she could compete with kids from Stanford. And there used to be a tournament called the Junior Olympics. So before Julie went to Stanford. She beat 2 players in the lineup at that summer tournament. But you have to think you can. But a young girl I spent a lot of time coaching, she played at California, Maria Smith. And I read her bio today, and she had world records for like 8 years old in the 100 meters. 8 years old, 10 years old. And her mother passed away at a young age, but her mother and father were both sprinters from the Bahamas. Have our fact checker get on this. Father was Paul was a receiver at one of the schools in Texas, the University of Houston. And we had her, she came, we helped her with technique, but she was recognized by the USTA. And again, since 87, the USTA's had player development. There's been a different cast, a revolving door, and that she would come back. And there was one time where they were with us for a long time, and they're based in Houston. There was time, that I sent her out to Dallas with Dave Anderson. But Ray Ruffles, an Australian, one of the oldie goldies, not the stardom of Emerson and Laver, but right there, one of the cronies. I mean, big time player playing all the majors. So he's a national coach of the USTA. So I finally called up Ray Ruffles, and he didn't know me from the man moon. I say, hey, I got 2 questions. Just need to know, when do you have time? He goes, I have time right now. So tell me if this is true. So he's playing Gerolaitis. Gerolaitis was, 3-4 in the world. And was playing at Wimbledon, and he thought it was a rain delay. He was done for the day. So he goes in, he's having a couple beers with his Aussie boys, Mother's Milk, and he hears over the intercom, he's called to the court. Ray Ruffles to the court, whatever. And it's like, son of a gun, he's got to go play. And the story goes, the legend is, he's down 2 sets to love. He goes out and he beats Carolina. So he told me that story. I said, well, my second question is, if I send you a tape, will you watch it? It's on this young girl, Maria Smith. So I watched it. I should say I sent it. Call him back. He watched it. And it was fine. He goes, mate, I agree with everything on that. It's just all makes sense. He goes, and he was very flattering. He goes, I've never seen anything like that in these narrated slow motion analysis tapes we make. And I said, you got to get in her corner. We don't have the prestige of national coaches, and we're working, and the mom's passed away. The dad doesn't really know tennis, and this girl can run, and she had sense of enjoyment. Some kids she was just a kid at heart, but she played at the University of California. That's big time tennis. But the deal is, hey, I want to play it beyond that. So Ray Ruffles said, I'm in. I got one problem. I'm going back to Australia. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to work with Tennis Australia for 2 years, and I'm going to retire. And that's what he did. But that's a story for University of California. Another one I told you, Nicole Havlicek. She learned to play tennis at Richmond Hill. She played in the lineup, my understanding, for sure in doubles. Sure in volley, both balls. That was back in the day. And you'd have to ask Richard Hernandez. She actually did a little babysitting for us at one time, just a couple of times here and there. But good athlete, hard worker, played it. That's big time tennis out of Richmond Hill. So I think it was very strong to tell your group of students who's going to watch these teams play, hey, here's because, if only 3% of kids play college tennis, it's like, okay, Ontario, Snowbank, she made it to the big time playing college tennis out in California. But here's my California story I got to tell. I won't mention the player's name. And she, I think she should have gone to Dartmouth. At that time, the Ivy League tennis wasn't as strong as it is now. She, bright kid to get into Dartmouth. So, Aoife Wilson, Irish coach I trained, lives out in NorCal. So she sent to me, and and work with her game. She came more than one time, but the very first time she came, I was the one who picked her up at the airport, coming in from California. So it's late. And she says, I'm petrified of being in Florida. I said, why? Said, I hate bugs. That's one thing where you're living in Montreal or Toronto, old man winter kills the bugs. As they say in Florida, there's two types of houses. Those that have insects, those that have termites, and those that will have termites. I mean, there's bugs everywhere. Cockroaches. I mean, you put a saddle on a cockroach. I mean, they're just huge. So we had this nice setup with one side. The boys' house was 4,000 square feet. Attached was a girl's house with 2,000 square feet. And then we had a garage apartment. But we had the garage apartment painted. So I'm driving her back, and I said, no problem. We have the place treated. There's no bugs. But because the painters had been in the apartment, garage apartment, turned off the AC, opened up the windows. But so it was cleaned up. The AC was running. But during the time they painted, the cockroaches found their way in. So this poor girl, I was teasing her. I said, well, we won't have any problem with cockroaches, but, you want to be aware that cockroaches, they eat the wax in your ears when you go to sleep. So that wasn't very nice. So, no, I said, I'm just teasing. And I didn't tell her this story. The worst story I've ever heard is that a person goes in, they have a swollen tongue. And now this is where the 14 people listen to our podcast will never listen again. So the guy goes in to see a doctor, his swollen tongue. They cut his tongue in cockroaches because the tongue is a warm, moist place for the cockroaches to place their eggs. So anyway, this girl goes into the apartment, and I turn the light on, and on each pillow, hard people working for us, the bed's all made up. There's a huge cockroach on each. She got a Dartmouth up there in New Hampshire. There wouldn't have been too many cockroaches, old man winter. So the poor girl, she did stay, she survived, and she played at the University of California. She didn't really rocket socket there, but she survived her trip. And, but I think she definitely slept with the lights on and one eye open but no, we do have fun when people name a pro, name 3 pros, and we tell them a story. The backstories are, to me, much more important than the front story. Like, who won? What was the score? Who won? What was the score? And, then we say, okay, name colleges. And, we're usually 10 for 10. People will name a college, and we've had somebody that we've taught to teach, be a coach there, or we taught someone to play there. But no, I hope in listening, thanks, Patrick, for visiting. I love your passion. The podcast tonight, we're heading towards 260. That would be 5 years. And we definitely need to change our format. But for 5 years, see if we were to multiply the number of podcasts with the number of minutes or even number of hours, it's been a lot of content. I do hope that people have got something out of these podcasts. With that, it's tennis talk. It's just tennis talk. And years ago, I'm growing up in ice hockey, but I certainly watched a lot of football. I never was really big on baseball, but I watched a lot of golf too. My family was into golf and the drama, making the putt. You heard of Lee Trevino?
I don't know Lee Trevino, but I like golf a lot.
But Lee Trevino, yeah, he's a funny guy. People you need to know. There's people. That's somebody like I'm going to study Lee Trevino, become a better golfer. Lee Trevino. Yeah, I found my ball in the rough, but I lost my bag. He pressure. A putt for $100,000 is not as much pressure as you're putting for $10 and you only get $5 in your pocket. Lee Trevino with tennis teaching, like say in golf, that most tennis teachers, if they were plumbers, and the sink had a leaky faucet. They would tell you have to take the whole roof off the house. I think a lot of people would say that about us. Oh, they just did an overhaul of your game. What Vic Braden would say, game? What game? That kid's lucky to find the bathroom. People that come and see us, a couple of people on this list, we have some very powerful videos. When they came to see us, there's two types of players on this list. For your players that were visiting here for the spring break, they already had games when they got here. They already hit the ball well. And why they need to come here is character 101. And, and I think the parents find that out when they come here is, it's not grip, swing, body. It's character. But no, there's two for sure. Well, even the player who's represented Canada at one point, he had no game.
Full rebuild. Yeah.
It's like, no. And then, but that's where we document development. So our naysayers is come and visit us, and you got to do a deep dive. You got to see some of the pre-posts with
and watch the video. Like, you can't disagree with the video. That's all. That like at my old club, just to go back on that. But that's what I would have loved them to do. I originally just wanted to have a meeting with some of the lead coaches and the lead fitness coach, and just put up a video, put up a pre and post, go through it, explain it, and go through it slowly. Okay, do you disagree with this? Why? Explain why. What's your scientific logic behind it? Because you can't disagree with physics. You can't disagree with court dimensions.
More and more college programs are training in the summer. It's volunteer practice. They're staying on campus, so then they can have a lighter load. Not say maybe they can take 12 hours instead of 15. Having people who are part of the team be part of the camp and take a summer and work on their game. This young player who, she gets healthy, she can play at one of these schools, and that's a compliment. And she'll get healthy. So with that, go to school. Skip the last semester of your senior year. Get on campus. Don't play matches. Don't let them fast track you. Even if you could win for them, don't play matches. No, I think one thing we didn't cover, I read the bios of the coaches, and actually it was the father and mother of this player I'm talking about, is to watch the coaches. Coaches are sometimes so nervous, and how do they handle it? And again, it's just a snapshot. Say, for example, watching the Stanford men's coaches, and they have such impressive backgrounds. Of course, actually, they have one younger guy. I know my son Connor played him. Harrison
Adams, yeah.
And it's great to see. He's at Stanford, so I'm sure he's made the decision. This is my career path. You don't just end up at Stanford. And if he's there, then his next step, obviously one day soon he'll probably be. And he's a young guy, he's 34, 35, right?
Yeah,
maybe he's a little younger than Connor. I know they played. I'll tell you, they played, and Connor won. Maybe they played more than once, but Connor won when they played in the NCAAs. Digressing. And I got a message into Connor. I remember I wasn't there. My mother was on her deathbed. And Steve Denton, who was a good friend of mine, he first hired me to help him learn how to teach tennis, coming off the pro tour. Steve Denton said to my son Connor, he said, from the waist up, because Connor was good mentally, the best when the knife was at the throat. He said, from the waist up, you're the best junior in the country, but not from the waist down. And he just told him, he said, Connor, I'm not recruiting you. And, Connor's pretty easygoing. And, but then Connor got really connected with college tennis, and Ohio State's playing A&M. I'm definitely played him in singles. He might have played him in doubles too. So another story. So I call him up and I say, hey, Connor, I just want to tell you one thing. Remember what Denton told you? He didn't recruit you. My mother's line, don't get mad, get even. I do think it was a win in doubles and singles because Bobby McKinley told me that he told Denton, he goes, I told you we should have recruited him. And, yeah, so anyway, shop talk. I mean, where was I before that? Time to wrap it up. Where was I? You have no idea? Neither do I. You have any idea where I was? Give me a thought and we're out of here. It was great to have you, Patrick.
I can end with one thing.
Yeah, help me out on my story.
Yeah.
Was I telling a story I didn't finish?
I don't think so, but I'll end with one thing. I really like this phrase that you and Yvonne both used. Can't violate physical laws, but so this is more like pros. So pros can't violate physical laws. They improvise within a fundamental range of correctness. I really like that.
Well, one is a Vic Braden line and one is a Welby Van Horn line. Vic, you can't violate physical laws. They square that racket face up at the hit. You know, Matt Clure, he films a lot of players down at the USTA. And he goes, it's just amazing. No matter how people swing, when they get to that point of impact, the strings are facing the target. But Welby is the one you can improvise within a fundamental range of correctness. They're, again, not violating physical laws. I know where I was with watching coaches. So the parents of this player we're talking about were what, do the coaches get all stressed out? I've had some experience coaching college tennis and, you got to get the players to laugh. You got to get the players to put things in perspective. I do think that that's where, some coaches are lacking is that I've coached so many kids who play college tennis and, we're talking to Dave Anderson about doing our podcast differently and people love listening to Anderson. He's coached so many college tennis players. So I've coached so many college players, they don't want anybody talking to them. And they certainly have a preference. Now there's 3 coaches. It used to be there would just be one. So then there was the very wealthy schools would have all these grad assistants. So now you can have 3 paid coaches at the top, the big schools. So the coaches, they have a preference of who they want to talk to them. I was at the NCAAs one year, and what was my business at the NCAAs? Certainly, these people that I've worked with are playing, but Dave Fish with the ITA, or should say with Harvard, and David Benjamin with the ITA. It was on how to help tennis camps. That's where the GreatBase should be involved with college tennis, is how to help tennis camps. And that would help tennis in America. But Manny Diaz, who just retired from Georgia, taught by Welby, he's sitting in the stands. And I remember people being so critical of him doing that. So then he would go, he didn't do that all the time. He's sitting up in the stands watching, and then he goes down and goes back up. You see all the matches from up above. And really, if you've done your coaching, there's a little bit too much hype. Like sometimes just let the players play. And, where they're talking to them in between every point and with, like say Dick Gould and how he dealt with McEnroe. There's just so many things. Dick Gould, Stanford, won 17 titles. And if you have to say something at that level and at that point, it's just 2 or 3 things. And you also, when you're coaching a player, you never want to make it a directive. It's just a suggestion. Here's something you could think about. Anyway, Patrick, say something in French and we're out of here.
Merci beaucoup à tout le monde. Toujours un honneur de parler avec Steve. J'adore parler à propos du tennis. Et bonne soirée à tout le monde.
Makes sense to me. Patrick, give me the high five.
Yes.
Wave goodbye to the camera. I hope you got something out of this. Thanks, listener. Thanks, Patrick. Another podcast in the books. Adios, amigos.